occasionally, sometimes I just go.
He had it all: fame, power, respect. Mel Gibson was Hollywood royalty, box office giant, Oscar winner, untouchable. Until he wasn't. Explosive scandals, leaked tapes, a career in freefall. The same man they once celebrated became the one they tried to erase. What really happened behind the scenes? Was this the fall of a legend or the exposure of the truth? This is the rise and the fall of Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson was born on January 3, 1956, in Peekskill, the sixth child in a family of 11. His father, Hutton Gibson, worked long shifts as a railroad brakeman before later becoming a writer and theologian known for his ultra-traditional Catholic views. His mother, Anne Patricia Riley, ran the household with iron discipline, raising the children in an environment saturated with prayer, Latin Mass, strict moral codes, and the belief that large families were a divine blessing. The house was loud, cramped, and intensely religious. Rosaries every evening, Mass every Sunday, no exceptions. Those early years gave Mel both a deep, lifelong connection to Catholicism and the rigid worldview that would later fuel controversy. In 1968, when Mel was 12, the family made a dramatic decision. Hutton had received a $145,000 workers' compensation settlement after an injury at work. At the same time, the Vietnam War draft was intensifying, and he feared his older sons would soon be conscripted. Rather than risk it, he sold the house, packed up his wife and 11 children, and moved the entire family to Australia. They settled in the quiet Sydney suburb of West Pymble. The transition was harsh. The Gibson children arrived speaking with thick New York accents in a country that found them foreign and mocked them for it. Mel enrolled first at St. Leo's Catholic College and later at Asquith Boys High School. He was short, wiry, reserved around strangers, but explosive when provoked. Schoolmates remember him as someone who never backed down from a fight. He was quick with his fists and slow to forgive. By age 16, he was drinking heavily, smoking cigarettes, skipping classes regularly, and hanging around with a rough crowd. Teachers described him as intelligent, but completely undisciplined. A boy with potential he seemed determined to waste. Acting entered his life by pure chance. One of his sisters secretly filled out an application to the prestigious National Institute of Dramatic Art, NIDA, and convinced him to attend the audition. Against all expectations, he was accepted in 1974 at age 18. Among his classmates were future stars Judy Davis and Jeffrey Rush. NIDA was rigorous and competitive. Mel began classes feeling out of place, shy, awkward, uncomfortable in his own body. Over time, something shifted. He found power on stage. He played Romeo opposite Judy Davis in a school production of Romeo and Juliet, delivering a raw, passionate performance that surprised even his teachers. In another experimental production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, he appeared as Queen Titania, dressed in full drag with makeup and costume. The instructors saw it immediately. He had physical presence, emotional range, and an ability to access deep feeling quickly. He was not refined or technically perfect, but he was compelling. While still a student, he began picking up small television roles. He appeared in several episodes of the popular wartime soap opera, The Sullivans, and in the long-running police procedural Cop Shop.
Morning, Maureen.
Hi, Peter.
Did you hear the news?
Yeah, Rod told me.
In 1977, shortly before graduation, he landed the lead in Summer City, a low-budget Australian surf film. He was paid $400 for 3 weeks of shooting. The movie is largely forgotten today, but it marked his first experience acting in front of a camera. After graduating from NIDA in 1977, Mel joined the State Theatre Company of South Australia. For the next couple of years, he worked steadily in stage productions: Oedipus, Henry IV Part I, other classical plays that demanded stamina and precision. During this period, he met Robin Moore, a nurse. They started dating seriously while he was still living in a cheap shared apartment and barely making ends meet. They married in 1980 in a small, private ceremony away from the spotlight. George Miller cast him as Max Rokotansky in Mad Max. The budget was minuscule, roughly $350,000 Australian dollars. Mel was paid about $9,000. Filming took place in the Australian outback during one of the hottest summers on record, with temperatures regularly climbing to 40 degrees Celsius. Mel wore full black leather jacket, pants and boots while riding a motorcycle across dusty, unpaved roads. The crew had almost no permits. They simply drove to remote locations and started shooting. Real motorcycle gangs were hired as extras. Vehicles broke down constantly. The entire production was chaotic, improvised, and physically punishing. When Mad Max was released, it exploded. It earned $5.4 million in Australia and over $100 million worldwide. US domestic, approximately $8.8 million, making it one of the most profitable films ever made relative to its cost at the time. At age 23, Mel Gibson became Australia's biggest movie star, virtually overnight.
My heroes. My heroes? Gee. My father?
That same year, he starred in Tim, an adaptation of Colleen McCulloch's novel. He played a gentle, intellectually disabled handyman.
Can't read.
All right.
Who forms a tender romantic bond with an older woman. The performance was quiet, sensitive, completely different from the violent Max. Critics were impressed by the range he showed. He won the Australian Film Institute Award for Best Actor, his first major recognition. In 1981, director Peter Weir cast him in Gallipoli. Mel played Archie Hamilton, a naive young farm boy who enlists in the Australian Army and meets a tragic end at the Battle of the Neck during the Gallipoli campaign. The final scene, Archie sprinting across open ground straight into Turkish machine gun fire, is still considered one of the most devastating and iconic moments in Australian film history. The shoot was grueling, long days under the desert sun, running barefoot across sharp rocks, enduring extreme physical demands. The film grossed $11.7 million in Australia and about $5.7 million in the US.
We had a long time to prepare for it.
Mel won a second consecutive AFI Best Actor award. International agents and Hollywood studios began reaching out.
The Year of Living Dangerously.
His first major Hollywood role came in The Year of Living Dangerously, 1982, directed by Peter Weir, opposite Sigourney Weaver, set in Jakarta during the final days of Sukarno's regime. Next was The Bounty, 1984, where he portrayed Fletcher Christian, leading a mutiny against Anthony Hopkins's Captain Bligh. Reviews were mixed, but audiences loved his brooding, rebellious energy. He followed with 2 American studio films in quick succession: The River, 1984, opposite Sissy Spacek, for which he received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actor.
What's going on in these fields?
and Mrs. Soffel, 1984, with Diane Keaton.
They brought you out?
A period drama about a prison warden's wife who falls in love with a condemned prisoner.
I got what you wanted.
Both films demonstrated he could carry quiet, emotional material as effectively as high-octane action. In 1985, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome was released. For the first time, Mel commanded a 7-figure salary. The film was bigger in scope, louder, and featured Tina Turner's iconic theme song. It introduced the now famous line,
2 men enter, 1 man leaves.
From the Thunderdome fight sequence.
Big fight.
It solidified his position as a global action star.
Raj, meet your new partner.
I'm too old for this.
Then Lethal Weapon, 1987, arrived and changed everything. Martin Riggs was the role that defined a generation. A grieving, suicidal Vietnam veteran turned cop who is brilliant, reckless, darkly humorous, and emotionally broken. Danny Glover played his grounded, family-oriented partner, Roger Murtaugh.
You ever met anybody you didn't kill?
Well, I haven't killed you yet.
The chemistry between them felt fresh and authentic. The film cost $15 million and grossed $120.2 million worldwide. Domestic, $65.2 million. 3 sequels followed. Lethal Weapon 2, 1989, grossed $227.9 million worldwide. Domestic, $147.3 million.
Riggs, homicide. Nobody's dead. Hey, the night's young. This is Sergeant Murtaugh.
Lethal Weapon 3, 1992, grossed $319.7 million worldwide. Domestic, $144.7 million.
Danny Glover.
And Lethal Weapon 4, 1998, grossed $285.4 million worldwide. Domestic, $130.4 million. By the early 1990s, Mel Gibson was consistently one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood. He wanted creative control. In 1989, he co-founded Icon Productions with Bruce Davey. Their first significant project was Hamlet, 1990, in which Mel played the title role and served as producer. The film received respectful reviews, but modest box office returns. Throughout the early 1990s, he alternated between commercial hits and more personal choices. Forever Young, 1992, Maverick, 1994, Ransom, 1996, which grossed $309 million worldwide, Conspiracy Theory, 1997, and Payback, 1999. All were financially successful and kept his star power intact. Then, he stepped behind the camera in a major way. Braveheart, 1995, was his second film as director and his first true epic. He also starred as William Wallace. The production was brutal. Months of filming in Ireland and Scotland in freezing, rainy conditions. Mel broke several teeth, dislocated a shoulder, and directed massive battle sequences while wearing heavy chainmail and armor. The finished film was 3 hours long, bloody, romantic, emotionally unrestrained. It grossed $209 million worldwide. Domestic, $75.6 million. Opening weekend, $9.9 million, against a $72 million budget.
Mel Gibson for Braveheart.
It won 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. At the 1996 Oscars, he became only the 6th person in history to win both directing and producing Oscars for a film in which he also acted.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is a truly wonderful evening for me. Thank you.
At 40, he was at the absolute peak of Hollywood power. Next came the project that would both crown his career and begin to fracture it. The Passion of the Christ, 2004. Mel directed, co-wrote, and largely self-financed the $30 million budget through Icon Productions. The dialogue was in reconstructed Aramaic, Latin, and Hebrew. The film depicted the final 12 hours of Jesus' life in graphic, unflinching detail. Every scourge, every nail, every drop of blood. When it opened in February 2004, it became a cultural phenomenon. It grossed $612.1 million worldwide. Domestic $370.8 million on that $30 million budget, becoming the highest-grossing R-rated film ever at the time, and the most successful independent movie in history. For millions, it was a profound act of religious devotion on screen. For many others, it crossed dangerous lines. Prominent critics, Jewish organizations, and scholars accused it of promoting anti-Semitic stereotypes through its portrayal of Jewish religious authorities and crowds. Mel repeatedly stated the film was about universal human sin.
I did this, but I did it with God's help. I mean, this is my version of what happened.
And Christ's sacrifice, not ethnic or religious blame. The controversy has never fully resolved. He followed with Apocalypto, 2006, a visceral chase thriller set in a declining Mayan civilization. Shot on location in Mexico with a largely indigenous cast speaking Yucatec Maya, it received strong reviews and grossed $120.7 million worldwide on a $40 million budget.
Actor Mel Gibson's conviction stemming from his notorious 2006 drunk driving arrest is being...
Then, in August 2006, a single night altered the course of his career. Mel was pulled over for drunk driving on Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. During the arrest, he launched into a recorded tirade that included vicious anti-Semitic slurs, crude sexual comments, and threats against the arresting deputy. The deputy leaked the remarks to the media. Within days, the quotes were published worldwide. Mel issued multiple public apologies, entered rehab, and sought treatment for alcoholism. Many studios and producers quietly distanced themselves. Several projects were cancelled or shelved. The damage deepened in 2010. Leaked audio recordings from angry phone calls during a bitter custody battle with ex-wife Robin Moore contained racist language, misogynistic insults, and threats. He later pleaded no contest to a misdemeanor battery charge stemming from an altercation and was sentenced to 3 years probation. The divorce was finalized with a substantial financial settlement. Much of the industry goodwill he had built over 3 decades evaporated. For nearly 10 years, he worked on the margins. He took small roles in independent films, did voice work, and directed one low-key project. The Beaver, 2011, directed by Jodie Foster, cast him as a severely depressed man who begins communicating exclusively through a beaver hand puppet.
Aspects of his personality. This is a joke, right?
No, son, it's a fresh start.
The film received respectful reviews, but disappeared at the box office. He spoke candidly in interviews about his alcoholism, anger issues, shame, and long recovery process. Robert Downey Jr. publicly defended him multiple times.
In forgiving my friend his trespasses, offering him the same clean slate you have me, and allowing him to continue his great and ongoing contribution to our collective art without shame.
Explaining that Mel had quietly supported him during his own addiction battles years earlier, when few others would. The first major sign of a return came in 2016. Hacksaw Ridge told the true story of Desmond Doss, a Seventh-day Adventist conscientious objector who served as a combat medic during the Battle of Okinawa.
Who did this?
That's the coward.
And saved 75 men without ever carrying a weapon. Mel directed, Andrew Garfield starred. The film was intense, graphic, and reverent. It grossed $180.6 million worldwide on a $40 million budget. It received 6 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture and Best Director for Gibson. At its world premiere at the Venice Film Festival, he received a 10-minute standing ovation, his first major public embrace in a decade. Since then, he has alternated between directing and acting. Supporting roles came in Daddy's Home 2, 2017, Dragged Across Concrete, 2018, The Professor and the Madman, 2019, Force of Nature, 2020, and several direct-to-video action thrillers. He directed and starred in smaller films such as Panama, 2022, and Hot Seat, 2022. In January 2025, he released Flight Risk, a contained thriller set almost entirely on a small airplane. It grossed $48.7 million worldwide. Reviews were mixed to negative, but it performed solidly in a quiet January market. Later in 2025, he starred in Hunting Season, a gritty action survival story that reminded audiences he could still project physical menace and intensity at age 69. His most ambitious project remains ongoing. The Resurrection of the Christ, initially conceived as a single sequel to The Passion, has been expanded into 2 feature films. Part 1 is scheduled for theatrical release on March 26, 2027, Good Friday. Part 2 on May 6, 2027, Ascension Thursday. Principal photography took place at Cinecittà Studios in Rome over an 11-month period and will wrap in 2026. The combined budget is reportedly between $200 million and $400 million. The films are being shot on IMAX cameras and aim to present an expansive, otherworldly depiction of the resurrection, ascension, and early apostolic era. Mel directs and co-wrote both scripts. Lethal Weapon 5 remains in development limbo. Mel has expressed interest in directing it himself as a tribute to the late Richard Donner, but studio changes and his focus on the Passion sequel have kept it on hold. As of February 2026, Mel Gibson is 70 years old. He has 7 children from his first marriage to Robin Moore, a daughter from a later relationship, and another child born in 2017. He lives relatively quietly in the United States and continues working in an industry that once closed its doors to him. His career arc is remarkable and unresolved. He delivered some of the defining action performances of the 1980s and 1990s. He directed 2 of the highest-grossing independent films ever made. He created religious art that moved millions and provoked millions more. He also spoke words, recorded, repeated, never fully retracted, that caused real harm and cost him dearly. Hollywood has allowed him back, not with open arms, but with opportunities. Some see talent, persistence, and sobriety as proof of redemption. Others see lasting damage that no box office success can erase. The question lingers: can exceptional creative gifts ultimately outweigh terrible personal failures? Can forgiveness in the public square ever be complete? That is the continuing story of Mel Gibson.